Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy, you can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. Hello, fans and listeners. Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and your host of the podcast. I'm very excited for today's guest, Carrie Verdon, and the conversation we had, just her authentically showing up, sharing her story, especially the important one about how she actually, because of nutrition, had to step away from sport, heal her nutrition, and then she was able to come back to sport with this totally new approach to fueling and mindset, and she's competing at an extremely high level. I'll get to her bio in one moment, but very quick and exciting announcement. I am launching a new website this month. I'm just getting y'all excited. Hopefully within the next week or two, it is officially launched. The site is not published yet, but as a heads up, it's just simply going to be femaleathletenutritionpodcast.com. And sort of my intent of this website is that if you are a listener and you know that the podcast has been a great resource for you, for information, for support, for help, that is the intent of the website as well. First and foremost, you're going to be able to listen to our episodes on there or search episodes, maybe even plug in a keyword to search, hey, I want to, find an episode about carbohydrates or about collagen, or I want to find an episode about gymnastics. And you can search some keywords and find an episode that resonates with you, considering this podcast has been going on for are we at 3.5 years now? 4? Something like that. I should know. I am the owner of it, but we've got lots of episodes now, and I want you to be able to search to find something that might really resonate with you. Second is, as again, a resource, is to know that we've had lots of people who provide services that are helpful to female athletes, and maybe you are looking for a chiropractor. Maybe you're looking for a strength coach. Maybe you're looking for another dietitian. I myself am a dietitian and I have my own business. However, as of the start of 2024, I'm temporarily not taking on one-on-one clients anymore at this time, hopefully again in the future. But with that being said, I still want you to be able to get the help you need. We've had plenty of other dietitians come on as guests. I want you to be able to search for help if you are looking for help. So you're going to be able to do that with this new website, femaleathletenutritionpodcast.com. You are also going to be able to get in contact to either give us feedback, review, guest suggestions, topic suggestions. If you have a brand or a company that you want to be promoted, we can connect, learn more, collaborate, see if it's the right fit. And another thing you're going to be able to do on the website is support the podcast with a financial contribution, a link to our Patreon so that you can support the podcast so that we can keep this going. So I'm really excited about this new website. Again, it's not launched yet. I'm just hyping you up right now and should be launched this month within the next week or so. And so just stay tuned, or, if you, again, in the future, you're like, man, I listened to a great episode. What was it? You'll be able to log on to femaleathletenutritionpodcast.com and get more support, resources, help, re-listen to that episode, and so much more. So that's what you can stay tuned for. But for today, let's get on to the conversation with Carrie. She is a professional runner and a first grade teacher living in Boulder, Colorado. Carrie's from California originally, but she ran for the University of Colorado at Boulder, where she ran cross country and the 5K through 10K on the track. Now, Carrie mostly races on the roads with a focus on longer distances like the half and full marathon, but she still does race some track and cross country races for fun. Carrie competed at the U.S. Olympic trials in track in 2021 in both the 5K and 10K. She just competed in the 2024 U.S. Olympic trials in the marathon this past February. And when she's not running or teaching, you can find Carrie in the mountains with her fiance and her 2 dogs, fishing, hiking, or exploring. Carrie, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and congrats on your engagement. Do you have a date set?
Yeah, thanks. We don't have a date set yet. We're pretty relaxed people. So maybe in the fall. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, that's awesome. Super exciting time, and congratulations to you both. So
thank you.
Yeah. And kind of just jumping right into things, because I think you certainly have a story worth telling when it comes to how nutrition has impacted you in your athletic career. So jumping right into things, I'd love to know, thinking back on, just your life to date, at what point in time did nutrition come on your radar as something you were aware of, whether good or bad at that time? Like at what point, because as kids, sometimes it's like, oh no, we just eat. But, at what point in your life was nutrition like you had this awareness that it impacted performance or health or anything at all?
Yeah, I think definitely I fell in that category of a kid who just ate. Nutrition was definitely not on my radar when I was young. And I have kind of been an athlete my whole life. I've done, every sport you can imagine. And I've done that since I was a really little kid. And so it really wasn't until I think my freshman year of high school when I went out for the running team, which was like my B sport at the time. That was when I had coaches asking me more about my nutrition. And that was kind of when I was like, oh, maybe there is a link between nutrition and athletic performance. And that was something that I had never really thought about before.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's interesting because it can be a good thing for a coach to bring awareness to it. It can be a good thing of, hey, let's start fueling properly and taking care of our bodies. I also feel like high school is just also like a dangerous time in the mind of a female, with all the things that are going on, pressures to perform, all the changes, like puberty, whatnot. And we're sometimes overthinking nutrition at that time.
Yeah.
Can be harmful for high school girls too. What for you, as it came on your radar of linking nutrition to performance, did it begin down this path of something that was helpful towards you or not?
Yeah, I think how it started was definitely a more helpful way of looking at it. I remember actually the first time someone ever asked me about what I was eating was that year, freshman year of high school. And an assistant coach at the time came to me and asked me what I ate for breakfast for whatever reason. I don't remember why. And I remember telling her oh, I just had some leftover pasta with some red sauce, which is weirdly a thing that I ate for breakfast all the time growing up because I loved pasta. And she was like,
yeah, and why not?
Yeah, right. And I remember her just her jaw dropping, and she was like, what? That's not something you can eat for breakfast. We really have to think about fueling ourselves correctly for this. And, I guess maybe she had a point, but at the same time, I was eating enough and I was eating carbs, right? It was just a funny conversation. But I remember that was definitely the point where I was thinking about it a little bit more from a sport lens.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. And I can't make any comments on that conversation not being present or knowing the intention behind it. But it is funny when we why not? Why can't we have pasta for breakfast? If you like it, we can. Maybe you need to up your protein or make sure, it's enough calories or whatever. But I remember one time in college, and this was actually probably a more disordered behavior, but I remember a girlfriend of mine eating broccoli with breakfast. And I thought that was so bizarre because I was no, vegetables are only for lunch and dinner, you eat fruit at breakfast. It was just that to me was bizarre, but I think it's actually really fun. We want to make sure we're getting the nutrients that we need and set you up for success. But I think it can be really fun to challenge yourself to pasta for breakfast or like, I mean, people do breakfast for dinner all the time. People love doing waffles for dinner. And like, so why can't we do dinner for breakfast,
I know. It's funny. There is like a cultural piece, to it. Because if you look at like Europeans, what they eat a lot of like cold cuts of meats and fresh vegetables for breakfast. And so, yeah, there's definitely a cultural piece to it too. But I was like, pasta's great.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, you just reminded me. It was when I was in college. I was like 19 years old, and I actually got a chance to go to Finland with my friend who lived there because she was actually on scholarship in the States, but she was from Finland. And anyways, like I specifically remember their breakfast there. It was like cheese and tomato and cucumber and sometimes fresh fish, like at breakfast.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was new to me because I think American culture, many of us are so used to sweet breakfast, which I also love sweets, but like it was refreshing to try something different. And that's something I took with me after that experience of like, oh, I can do more savory things for breakfast more often.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, and as you said, running was more of your B sport heading into high school because you did so many other things. At what point in your journey was it like, oh, I'm really good at this. Let's pursue this more intensely or seriously?
Yeah, it was probably my sophomore year. So pretty early on, I was doing soccer and running. And I grew up in California. So in California, the winter time was when we did soccer. And so it kind of worked out to do cross country in the fall, soccer in the winter, and then track in the spring. But when I was doing soccer, all my teammates from the cross country team were, training over the winter for track season. And yeah, I just started getting a little bit better at running. I started to really love running for, the people that it brought me together with, the places I got to see. And it was just something different and new to me. And so I think probably it was my sophomore year where I kind of put soccer on the back burner. I still did it, but I focused a lot more on running, and that kind of turned into my A sport at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to recall kind of your history. You went to like Foot Locker, the Foot Locker race, like your junior year or senior year, or both perhaps.
Yeah, I went to Foot Locker Nationals my junior year. That was the only time. And then my senior year, I was injured. So I didn't go.
Oh, that's upsetting. Yeah. Just a bummer because you always want to finish like senior year strong and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah. So wonderful. And so then that led you obviously to pursue and be able to run in college. And you've shared a bit more publicly about struggling with your nutrition. Did that kind of begin in college, or were there sprinkles of that in the high school timeframe?
Definitely started in the high school timeframe. I think it kind of started, and I've kind of spoken about this publicly, but it kind of started as like, oh, eating, healthy is really, really important. So I need to like eat super, super healthy. And so that's kind of where that's kind of where it all started. I was just trying to be hyper focused on eating clean, quote unquote. And I think that kind of spiraled into just not eating enough in general. So definitely started in high school, and then, continued into college and probably got a lot worse in college. But yeah, definitely started in high school just with me trying to eat healthier. And I think that kind of found its way into, just not eating enough in general to fuel the work that I was doing.
For sure. And I think that, I don't want to normalize this because it is a problem, but it is a common problem that when we, with the best of intentions, want to quote, eat healthy, it turns out to be honestly underfueling, undernourishing, just not getting enough. And this is really noticeable when you are an athlete. And what were some of the first signs for you that like this was maybe problematic, that like not eating enough, even if it wasn't super intentional, just trying to be healthier? Like, did you have some first signs that this wasn't good?
I think like in the moment, I wasn't like noticing any of those signs because I didn't really know what I was doing. It wasn't necessarily purposeful on my end. I didn't like want myself to get an eating disorder. It kind of just like spiraled into that. And I think, I was cutting things out that I normally wouldn't cut out. That was probably the first sign. And I kind of became hyper aware of my weight in high school, and then moving into college, the same thing. And I had this, weird idea that weighing less would be beneficial for my sport, which is like so not the case at all. So yeah, I think cutting things out that I wanted to eat, and then I had like all of these rules, like, oh, I shouldn't be eating that. I think those were some of the first signs that I noticed, and I can remember just like looking back at that time.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think these are things that, if somebody's hearing this and they're like, oh, I'm doing that, again, you might be doing it with the best of intentions, but it might actually not be the healthiest approach. And then maybe for coaches or parents to be aware that somebody who's very, very hyper aware of their weight, somebody who's kind of cutting food out, these are some warning signs that it might be leading down a bad path, or just it isn't ideal for health, whether it's down a bad path mentally or even just physically. Both are important. And I feel like I just want to like cue this in for our listeners. Yeah, I think when it comes to nutrition, and the focus shouldn't be about cutting things out, but really adding things in. If we want to focus on, how can I get more protein, more carbs? How can I get more fruits? How can I get more fiber? Whatever it might be. And I'm not saying that people are always adding in the right stuff per se, but I just think that mindset shift is a more helpful one for people to focus on what can we add to our diet, not what can we remove.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the way I view like my diet now, is how can I add things in to help me? Because there's really been a huge mindset shift on like nutrition and its role in my life as an athlete and my life just as a human being in general. Yeah. So I love that. Adding things in and looking at things that way has been like really eye-opening and life-changing for me.
Yeah. And I can't wait to talk about that huge shift and the life-changing transformation. But I want to slow us down just a little bit and kind of just, I want to hit on maybe one more aspect of your journey on the negative side, but I just think it's important to share with people like kind of the struggles that you faced. You faced a lot of injuries during this college time. Is that right?
I did. I was perpetually injured. My probably freshman and sophomore year were great. And that was like, the start of my disordered eating, like kind of really spiraling down. And then, I struggled with a lot of bone injuries, just like year after year after year. And so I was not stringing together consistency at all in my running. And ultimately I, didn't have the college experience I wanted because of that. And it's really sad. But I was injured a ton.
Yeah. No, it is really sad, but in a weird way, it also then pushed you to get help, and which was huge, and why you're now saying you've had this, huge life-changing shift in the way that you approach fueling, because you did go and get help. And a part of your story that I'm familiar with but want to hear more from your viewpoint was that you, in getting help for your nutrition, also stepped away from sport at that time.
Yeah.
And that must have been an incredibly hard, decision.
Yeah, I think.
Or was it? I don't know.
It was a really hard decision. I think, all through college, I was so wrapped up in my identity as a runner, and, running kept failing me. It was really, probably my eating disorder causing running to fail me, and just like lack of proper nutrition that was causing my body to break down the way it was. But because my identity was caught up in being a runner, and then running wasn't really there for so many months out of the year because I was injured, I didn't really know who I was anymore without running. And so everything in my life was just kind of like spiraling all at once. I was struggling with my nutrition. I was not running very well. I was injured all the time, and running just like wasn't fun anymore. And I've always been the runner who just like loves it. I do it because it's so much fun. And so because all of that was happening at the same time, right when I graduated, and I had no plans to like continue running, like nothing was like set up in the future moving forward for me. And so I was like, I need to stop running to just figure out who I am outside of running. And I didn't know if I would ever come back to running, but I think in that moment, that was like absolutely the right call. And, looking back at that time of my life, I'm like so proud of myself for making that call because that like saved me.
I think there's so many athletes in a variety of sports, and especially at that time in our life when we're still, young, and like maybe you worked your whole high school, your whole college career, and like sports take up a lot of your time and your effort and your energy. It is such a part of your identity. It's a huge part for any athlete of like your life, your life up to that point, right? It's can be so hard to figure out who am I without this, and it's scary.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, but you are still somebody, and you have so much to offer, and you have things to offer and discover about yourself that you don't even know yet. So it's scary, but I think it can also be exciting. I know that's what I try and tell my clients that, might, in whether it's a similar or a different reason for you, like do need to step away from sport for a little bit. It's like, hey, you're going to discover and learn so much more about yourself, and you're either going to be a better person because of it, or in the process of doing that, like you're going to come back to your sport and it's going to be even greater, when you come back because you went through this. So many people, I don't know if you had this, but like, yeah, I guess you already explained it. You didn't know if you were going to come back to running or not. It's just this big open-ended, like not sure what's next.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to kind of push yourself to those like moments in life that are just like a little scary to kind of like learn something new about yourself. And I think now, obviously I came back to running and it's still a huge part of me, but now I know that like I am a person without running, but running adds so much to me as a person. And I think that kind of mindset is so much healthier. So that breakaway was good. And if anyone is ever struggling, like it's okay to take a break. Running will still be there, whether you want to go back to it or not, or, whatever sport. And so, always kind of listen to that gut feeling of like what you need and then take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's like, if it's the right thing for you, you'll come back to it. And if it's not the right thing for you and you don't come back to it, well, good. You're still doing the right thing for you. Then it's a win-win either way. If you look at it that way. Yeah. All right, listeners, I hope you're enjoying this conversation. It's me, Lindsay, again. I just quickly wanted to remind you that as a listener of this podcast, I do have some deals and discounts that you can take advantage of if they are right for you. Again, on the new website that's coming, I'll have all of them listed. And as you follow along and listen to different episodes, I just let you know of one or two at a time. And right now, I just want to remind you of Inside Tracker, which is a company that can integrate your blood, your DNA, your nutrition, and fitness tracker data with findings from more than 7,000 clinical studies to provide you with unique lifestyle and fitness and nutrition prescriptions personalized to you. When Inside Tracker started, they were mostly just looking at blood biomarkers, which is the way that I still actively use them to get my blood work drawn on a regular basis and, have that information at my fingertips and have Inside Tracker's feedback on how to improve upon my blood work. But over the years, they've expanded to far more than just that. So as I mentioned, I love getting the ultimate plan that looks at 48 different blood biomarkers in heart health, hormone balance, sleep, inflammation, metabolism, recovery, cognition, endurance, fitness. But beyond that, you can also purchase different plans that integrate DNA testing, sleep tracking, fitness tracker data, and it's just so great to have this information at your fingertips that you can take actionable steps to improve. So you can use the code LindsayCPro25. That's Lindsay, Lindsey, C for Cortez, Pro, PRO25 for 25% off any plan that you wish to use. I do love that they have bundling options so you can kind of bundle and get discounts when you do that. And that is really the best way to use Inside Tracker instead of just doing it as a one-time thing, to really see once you get your results and take their advice on how to improve. And then, 3-6 months later, do it again and see how you've improved and track your progress. It's really, really cool. They've got such a user-friendly platform and app to help you really be in control of your health and your progress. So again, Lindsay C Pro 25 for 25% off. Head to www.insidetracker.com. Let's get back to the conversation with Carrie. I'd love to kind of dig into just this period of time where you sought out recovery for this eating disorder. You stepped away from sport. Looking back now in hindsight, what were some of like the biggest lessons you learned or like things, and kind of focusing a little bit more on the nutrition piece? Like we already went over, like just expanding your identity was huge. Mm-hmm. But in this recovery period, like what were some of the biggest nutrition pieces that really helped you get your health back and, start to really fuel and nourish your body better and more consistently?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was, so I actually talked a lot to my fiance about like the struggles I was going through. And I talked about, where my headspace was at with nutrition and food. And my fiance is a cyclist. So he's an endurance athlete, but he's not a runner. And so his perspective on like using food as fuel kind of really, really helped me, because he kept saying, like, hey, if you want to keep running and if you want to keep doing these things that you love, like moving your body, like you have to fuel that. And I think that just having the mindset shift of I'm scared of food to I'm using food as a way to like continue doing what I love was really, really helpful for me. And that was like, I guess the key piece that really shifted how I was thinking and using nutrition, because before I was, like I said, avoiding things, cutting things out. And then now I was like, okay, how can I help myself? And food is one of the best ways to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Instead of being scared of it and really thinking that food is working against you, knowing that, no, this is fuel that's working with me, with my body, and can open up these doors and allow me to do what I love. It's such a mindset shift. And it's like, totally, it's not biased. It's truth. It's like the right mindset shift. Food is fuel. Like it's just the truth. And so stepping into that and really embracing it, like fully, is what people really need to do. Like food is not, and I think even just sometimes I just go back to basics of like, we don't survive without food. It can't be bad, right? So many people have this black and white, like this is a good food, bad food. It's like at the end of the day, if you haven't eaten anything, like Cheetos keep you alive.
Yeah.
And so we just like can't call it bad. I always go to the extreme examples, but I'm like, somebody with low blood sugar or something like that. It's like, and they're crashing or they're going into a diabetic coma or something like that. Like Coke keeps them alive. Like it's fuel for your body. And just like going to those fundamentals.
And I use Coke in marathons, so it's even good for elite marathoners.
There you go. My dad, when he started running marathons, I remember helping him with this. Like he would set out his Coke to make it flat the night before, and then we would like stage it on his runs and everything. So yes, there's lots of uses for it. So we can't, just that like totally washing away that good food, bad food mentality, knowing food has a function and a form and can provide a good purpose in lots of different scenarios, knowing that it's working with you, it's working for you. And it's so helpful to not be scared of it anymore.
Yeah, that really helped me.
I think another thing that I heard you say was obviously your now fiance was there for you. And I just think that's a good message to know, like you do need support, whoever it's from, whether it's from, somebody you're intimate with in a relationship, or just like a parent or a good friend, or even like an online support group. Like you're not alone in these struggles. Nobody's ever alone in their struggles. Like whatever you're facing, people are facing it with you.
And I think it's so important to ask for help and not be ashamed that you're going through all of this. Cause I think that's something that I felt was this sense of shame and, I'm embarrassed that this is happening to me. And I thought it was, I didn't really put two and two together that it's like a mental health struggle. I just thought it was like me making a choice, but I had no control over my choice. And so I think, just being vulnerable and asking for help, or, even if you see someone who you think is struggling, like asking them if they're okay or if they need help. I think that's all really important because, I've had both of those things in my journey, both people asking if I needed help and people there for me offering, to help and to talk to me and be that rock for me. And so, it's really, really good to ask for help.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that, I think by human nature, we're not always good at asking for help. It's just, I don't know why it's so hard for us to admit that we need help. But when you do, and, find whether it's 10 people or one person, it can make the world of a difference and can be so important. So I love that, you did ask for help and that you had someone in your corner. And I think it's important for other people to hear that as well. So as you were, working through this and you found your identity outside of sport, and then you started utilizing food as fuel for your body and how it could function. Like at what point in time or for what reasons did you know that you could return to sport like safely, I suppose, or just safe or just like with that healthier approach?
Yeah. So I took kind of a year off of running. I went and got my master's in education and I was just like doing life without running.
Yeah.
And I think in that time, I just started to, like I said, figure out who I was a little bit more. And then through that, just like gain confidence in myself as a person. And I think I kind of eventually got to a point where I was thinking about running again. I was like dreaming about racing again. And I just had this overwhelming sense of confidence that if I did choose to go back to the sport, I would be able to make, really healthy decisions for me. And so, it just like took time. And it was just this sense of, confidence, I guess I'd say, that I could handle it.
Yeah.
And so then I came back.
Well, I love that as overwhelming confidence. And that's huge because I think if somebody is in a similar, situation to you, but they're still scared to return or they're not sure if it's the right thing, then maybe it's not, or we need more time to figure it out. But like for you were having dreams about it. Like it was in your blood. You were ready to go.
Yeah, I was definitely, I was ready. And I mean, that being said, I was still like nervous, right? I was like, oh my gosh, I hope that I don't get injured again. I hope that I don't fall back into this, disordered eating, spiral again. But I had like a support system that I knew I could count on. I knew what the signs were to look for in myself. People around me knew what signs to look for. And I just kind of like promised to myself that that wouldn't happen again.
Yeah, that's huge. A commitment to yourself, but also having the support system in place. Some sort of like accountability is just huge. And with that being said too, because then from there you got back into things and, it just kind of took off, like, figuratively, literally in running, just really took off and started seeing great success. And I guess like maybe, and this can be basic, like you don't have to go into like detail per se, but whatever you are comfortable sharing, but like what are running at a high level as a professional runner that you are in long distances as well, like what are some of the fundamental like things when it comes to your diet and nutrition that you're like, I have to fuel this way to make sure that I'm like that I have my accountability, that I'm not slipping down, I'm not, slipping up, underfueling at all or going, into weird disordered habits. Like, do you have any, I almost like to call them like guardrails, like little barriers in place to make sure that I'm on the right path with my fueling? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think, every day kind of looks different just based on what I have, but some of my, I guess, guardrails, I like how you say that, is, one, listen to my hunger cues. I, as an athlete with kind of like a crazy schedule sometimes, and someone who's training a lot, like, I don't think eating like a meal for every, like sometimes like I would need 2 breakfasts, right? Or sometimes like I'm skipping a lunch, but I'm having a bunch of snacks because I have a workout in the middle of the day or whatever it is. And then I'm having a bit bigger dinner. And so for me, it's just like listening to those hunger cues because my body is great at telling me what it needs. So that's kind of one for me. And also just like trying to get in enough carbs, proteins, fats. I don't count anything, but I can just like look at a plate and be like, okay, carbs, got it. Fat, got it. Protein, got it. And kind of just like go from there. But yeah, hunger cues is huge. And then having a general idea of like carbs, proteins, fats, and then always getting in a post-workout recovery.
Love that. I'm just literally jotting notes down to recap here. So yeah, I love the visual. It's a visual checklist on my plate. Do I have every component that makes sort of a complete meal? Great. Like, oh shoot, this doesn't, like the pasta and marinara for breakfast again. Oh shoot, there's not enough protein in there. Like, let's add some protein to it. Okay. So just kind of checking those boxes is huge so that we're not missing a big chunk of something. We don't have to count carbs, but at least we know we had a source of carb at every single meal. And that's a great guardrail. Listening to your hunger is huge too. I absolutely, maybe somebody with a non-athletic schedule or a little less busy than you might just have their breakfast, lunch, dinner. Well, not only are you a professional runner, you also work full time. So I just like your days must be long. Your schedule must be quite busy fitting things in. And so, yeah, we need to like stop putting labels around like, well, this is breakfast, this is snack. I love that. Like I can have breakfast number 1 and breakfast number 2.
Yeah.
And then, just recapping what you said, oh no, I didn't have lunch, but I know I need fuel and my body's telling me I'm hungry and I'm super hungry. So I had 4 snacks over the course of the last 4 hours, right? Or whatever it might be, but really listening to your body. I love that. And the last one, always post-workout, always recover.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier in the episode that when you were in that disordered relationship with food and that disordered mindset, you had these rules around food that were probably, well, they were disordered, kind of unhealthy, leading you to underfueling. And so I'm a big fan of saying no food rules until we get to this point. And I'm like, except you have to eat post-workout. And that's a rule. Except you have to eat pre-workout. Like, that's a rule.
Yeah. And that was one of my disordered thoughts was like, I should not be eating right after my workout. And like looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I prevented my body from adapting to the work I was doing. Like, it's just so ironic that like I was training, but then I wasn't allowing my body to like use that training to adapt and get better, which is what I wanted to do. Like, it's just so, so crazy that the places your mind goes when it's having a hard time.
I know. And the best way that I try to explain this to people is just reminding them that exercise of any form is actually a catabolic experience. It does break your body down in the process of doing it. We only build up and get stronger, get faster, adapt to our training, whatever it might be, whatever form of training you're doing in the recovery period. So that involves nutrition and rest. And it's only in the recovery period that you actually, where the work of your training benefits you. If you don't have that recovery, if you're not fueling and you're not resting, you're sleeping, then you just broke your body down and now you're staying broken down. It doesn't ever recover.
It's so fascinating that like that is a concept that a lot of people don't understand. And I love that you are telling people that because it's so important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And well, thank you for like sharing your story and journey. And I think, hindsight is always 20/20, right? It's like, how did I think that way? But, at the same time too, you shared in your journey, some of this started when you were really young in high school and as a teenager. And we sometimes just don't sometimes, and this is a little bit of my story too, like we just don't know what we don't know. We're still young. We're, and there's things that I think as a society, as a culture, as coaches, as educators that we can do better. That's one of the reasons for this podcast, to try and educate people on the importance of using food as fuel and not being scared of it and adding food to your diet, adding nutrition to your life instead of taking it away. Like, these are concepts that we need to start spreading more to help, if we can just help one person prevent them from going down that path. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, for you right now, it's like, how could I think that way? But so much of this was when you were young and you didn't know. And I think the term you used earlier too is like things just spiraled, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. But what's amazing about this is you climbed your way back out, which is so great. And so kind of catching us up to speed, you recently competed in the U.S. Marathon Olympic Trials,
Mhm.
and you still do a variety of distances. Is the marathon kind of your longest distance that you've raced in? Have you
Yeah.
dabbled in anything
Yeah.
longer than that
I
yet?
haven't done anything longer. I've run like longer runs, but I've never raced anything longer
Yeah.
than a marathon. So yeah, but I do
Yeah.
everything from 5K to marathon.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, that's kind of, in my eyes, like that's a big difference. Do you find when you were training up for the marathon or like even just fueling for the marathon, anything that you had to pay attention to a little bit differently? Or I should even say, or focusing on the 5K, anything that you focus on a little differently in training or on race day in like a 5K versus a marathon?
Yeah, so I think overall, just like in for training in general, when you're training for a marathon, like my mileage per week is like significantly higher than compared to when I'm training for shorter distances, obviously. And so the bulk, like the body of my food is just like more. I just like have to eat more when I'm marathon training. So that's like a major difference. But the biggest thing is when you're marathon training, you are running for such long periods of time in training and in racing that you have to fuel while you're running. And so that was
Yeah.
something that I had to learn, when I started my marathon journey was just like fueling while running. And that's obviously when I'm running 5K stuff, 10K stuff, I'm not fueling while I'm running.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it makes sense. And I'm curious because so many people, athletes specifically, are told, oh, you need to eat more. Do you find when you're marathon training and need to eat more to fuel your body, do you find it's easier to just eat like bigger portions or to eat more often or to eat more nutrient dense food or a little bit of everything?
I think eating more nutrient dense food is great and also just eating more. I don't think
Yeah.
eating more often works for me personally. But again, if that works for you, then go for it. But yeah, for me, it
Right.
was
Right.
nutrient dense foods and then just like eating bigger portions.
Yeah. No, yeah, there's lots of different ways that we can eat more and it's whatever works for you. But I just like to ask you because I actually had a client session the other night where we were going over this. And I think a lot of people do struggle to modify their portions, which is
Yeah.
necessary. It's like, oh, okay, if I'm in your example, we're just doing 5K, 10K training right now, and then bumping it up to marathoning to allow yourself to give yourself permission to increase that portion so that your dinner plate suddenly looks significantly different than it did a month ago. That can be a hard, like, mental change for people to do. But I do find that easier than just continually like adding like, oh, I need an extra snack or I need an extra thing or like that just to me personally feels more, there's more decision making in like, what am I going to eat next or when am I going to fit it in versus like same meal, just like more on the plate.
Yeah.
That's what works for me as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
for me, a lot of times in my marathon training, I'm running twice a day. And so adding more snacks in gets complicated when I have to run again because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to like digest this before I start running. And so, yeah, just eating,
Yeah.
a bigger portion just worked out well for me and my schedule.
Yeah. And then, of course, like you said, too, you have to train during your runs. And then you can even view that as another fueling opportunity, in that sense of like, right, how am I going to fit all this in while I actually am going to eat while I'm running, while I'm training. So that's great. Gosh, Carrie, that's a lot schedule wise because you're working full time too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The days get busy sometimes.
Yeah. Do you find you need to work in ways to like schedule in relaxation or rest or like how does that work for you?
Yeah, the rest and relaxation is really hard for me to do just because the type of person I am, I like to do things constantly. And so, yeah, finding ways to kind of like simmer down at night and to kind of have quiet time in the morning and wake up, a little early to have that like relaxation time is really important. But yeah, I find time.
Yeah. We all find our ways. I've been working on that myself recently, and just little things of like scheduling. I have a very different life than you right now, but like just scheduling things in of like, okay, once a month I'm going to have like a babysitter come to help me out, and I have to like schedule in like the relaxation time.
Yeah.
Otherwise it doesn't always get done. And, I'm not sure about you, but like I will hit burnout, even though I think I thrive off of being busy and all that. Like I absolutely do hit burnout. So I have to schedule in my relaxation time. And like,
yeah, I'm a big scheduler. And so I'm just like you. I have to like plan things out and have to schedule that time and like make a note to like take a nap in the afternoon or whatever it may be.
Yeah. It's literally on your to-do list. Take a nap today, because I know, but we learn that about ourselves, like, as you just go along in life, I suppose. Like the more times you burn out, you're like, wait, I don't want to do this again. So I love being busy. Obviously you continue your job, not just because you're good at it, but because you enjoy it, and the running, same reasons. You're good at it and you enjoy it. So it's like, in order to do both, we need to schedule in that time for ourselves to take care of ourselves too. So I love that you can find the time to do it. Oh, fun. So I always end every podcast episode with the same questions, if you're ready to play along for our final 4 questions. If there's a food out there that you could eat every single day for the rest of your life and never get sick of it, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Probably sushi.
So good. I had sushi last night.
Yum.
You're in Colorado though, not like the best place for it.
I know. There's like one sushi restaurant that's like in the town next to me that is like the only good sushi here. But it's sad.
Yeah. No, but at least you got it. That's great that you have the restaurants there. I mean, I'm in Texas, so I'm not that much like better, but I used to live by the beach and we had so many good sushi restaurants. Amazing. Okay, this sounds obvious, but you never know. What is your favorite sport to participate in?
Running.
Yeah. How about as a spectator?
Okay, so I love this question. As a spectator, I love watching cycling. It is my favorite thing ever.
Yeah, and your fiance is a cyclist. Is he a road cyclist?
Yeah, he did all of it. He did cyclocross, mountain bike, and road.
Wow. Okay, amazing. So, and do you like watching all of them as well, or do you lean towards one?
Probably cyclocross, just because it's really crazy. Hilarious and fun, and crazy. Lots of skills involved. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I love how you described it as being hilarious. But yeah, because it's, as a spectator, it's like, it's pretty crazy to watch. So that's awesome. And then our final question, if there's another female athlete out there that you want to give a shout out to, somebody well-known or in your personal life for just being a role model and inspiration, who would that be and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. There's so many amazing athletes. I guess Molly Seidel, who I don't know personally.
Yeah.
I love her for how authentic she is and how she shares her highs and her lows and everything in between. And I just really respect that.
Amazing. So shout out to Molly Seidel and to you, Carrie. I really appreciate you being open about your journey. And I think it's just so important for people to know that sometimes like we can go down that bad path and it can spiral, and to get help, to get support, to get yourself out of that, climb your way back up, and to also know that, you can be, when you recover from it and heal from that, you can, be on the other side of it like you are now, where you're just like not only back in sport and loving it, but really using food to your advantage, really fueling your body to live the life that you are loving.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. And so I appreciate you sharing not just the struggles, but how it looks on the other side.
Yeah. Thanks for having me and letting me share my story. I appreciate it.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, if you are a true fan of female athlete nutrition, then I would love if you could support our podcast by spreading the word. Share a review on your listening channel, give us 5 stars. It really helps get the word out and get the show more views to positively impact others. Also, you can support the podcast by joining our Patreon. Head to patreon.com/female athlete nutrition to consider a donation, or even better, join our membership where you get extra monthly content and perks. We don't want you to simply listen alone. We want you to be a part of a community and a movement of fierce, fit, and fueled female athletes. So patreon.com/female athlete nutrition is where you can do exactly that, learn more, and join. A huge thanks to our affiliates and partners as well. Once again, Prevenix, Inside Tracker, Orgain, Practice Better, Jen and Carrie. Please go check them out, and their links in the show notes where you can get deals and discounts. Last, be sure that you do more than just listen. If you need help with fueling, it's time to take action. Head to my website to learn more. You can either book a free call with me to learn more about our coaching programs and how we can work directly with you, whether it's the fast track or otherwise. Or you can take our online self-study course, Female Athlete Nutrition. You can literally sign up and gain access right now. You can explore our downloadable products, including the Red S Recovery Guide, High Iron Fueling Guide. Or if you are a coach of a team, check out our brand new Coaches Toolkit for teams. You can also just learn more. We have a blog, a Red S quiz to see if Red S is affecting you. If you need help, I want you to get help fast. Too many girls and athletes struggle with nutrition, but you don't have to any longer. You can rise up with the power of nutrition, take action today in any of these avenues, and become fierce, fit, and fueled. Links in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.